Hello everyone, Floppy Waffles 69 here guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I have a full deep dive review for you today of the Tier 7 Premium Italian Heavy Cruiser. This is the Gorizia. This is a Zara sister ship, so if you are familiar with how the Zara plays the tech line Tier 7 Heavy Cruiser for the Italians going down the Venezia line, then you will feel right at home here with the Gorizia. Now, why am I featuring this specific ship here today? This kind of comes out of left field, but then again, so do all my ship reviews. Well, I'm featuring this ship today because on April 29th, 2026, the Azura Lane collaboration has now officially gone live. And just like I believe last year, they are indeed doing it again this year with giving away the Gorizia at a massive discounted price of like, what is it? 70% off. I don't even remember here. I'll flash it up on screen. And it's kind of like a bundle of not only the ship, but the commander, some mission chains, some stuff like that, and etc., right? And I believe it's only going to run you sub $10 here on the NA server. So whatever that is equivalent in your country of origin, there it is. You're basically getting a discount. Now, normally I wouldn't recommend these kind of ships because I usually find Wargaming gives away these ships that are like relatively not as popular or not as good, or they don't deem they can make any money off these particular ships anymore. I'm basically looking at ships like the Scarlet Thunder, for example. We just saw, I think, the last update or two, that deal went and came and went, right? And I wasn't really a big fan of that ship. But the Gorizia, in my opinion, is a different story. This is a Zara class ship, like I've already stated, and I am a massive fan of the Zara. If you have watched my review on the other Zara sister ship in game, I believe it's the Fume. I called it the Fume, whatever. It was in the battle pass like 3 or 2 battle passes ago, and I really much love that ship as well. So if I like the Zara and I like the Fume, then ultimately I'm probably going to like the Gorizia, and that is the case here, folks. I really do like this ship. I think she's actually not half bad, but I will acknowledge that I think of the 3 Zara class ships we have in game, I think she is the worst, and it's not because she's not capable. Really, honestly, it just comes down to one thing, and that just comes down to the DPM of the particular ship. Because if we look at all the ships lined up together, we actually do find out that the Gorizia has the worst DPM of the bunch. But again, why does DPM matter as much? Well, it matters less when it comes to heavy cruisers, but ultimately we're just comparing the same salvo weight and broadsiding potential of that of the Zara. We have a 15-second reload instead of a 14.5. Now, you're probably sitting there scratching your head going, Waffle, that's like nothing. And yeah, ultimately, that is nothing. But it does eventually add up over time, and the Zara is etching the ship out in regards of it. A little bit of DPM and overall playability is a little bit easier to play on the Zara, as you do come in with a little bit more main battery firing range and a little bit of a quicker reload, right? The main battery firing range of the Zara is 16.1. The Gorizia only has 15.6. So you're going to have to close the distance a little bit more in order to get your main battery online. But really, relatively speaking, you shouldn't have to close it that much because 15.6 is very much doable at tier 7, and plus on top of that you do get a spotter plane, which will help you either lob shells over islands, or it'll help you extend your range by 20%, which again is always nice to see. Now, a couple of differences between the Gorizia, Zara, and Fume are that, remember, the Fume doesn't have semi-armor piercing, and that is what the Gorizia and the Zara have. The Gorizia does come in with the semi-armor piercing in the AP. Again, this is the 4x2 203mm guns, just like that of the Zara. But the big difference here is just going to come down to the consumables that the ship has. The Zara has your standard consumables of your fuel exhaust smoke. It has the choice of a spotter or fighter, and it does actually pick up the sub-surveillance radar on this ship. The Gorizia drops the sub-surveillance radar, and it actually picks up the 6-kilometer hydroacoustic search that is found on a lot of higher-tier German ships, which is very nice. It kind of pays patronage to, like, the Italians being part of the Axis powers, I guess. It is nice to have a 6-kilometer hydro. It allows you to theoretically be a little bit more aggressive and have a little bit more of a safety net when it comes to, potentially spotting incoming torpedoes, as your torpedo detection range on that hydro as well is 4 kilometers. But just because you have a 6 kilometer hydro doesn't mean you need to be getting up in the fray all the time. We see this with examples of like the Rune, for example, with that turret arrangement and whatnot. They aren't there to be aggressive, especially early on in battle. You have the ability to be, but I think it's meant more for middle of the game to later of the game when you need to be forced into, you know, closer in situations, and that's where these 6 kilometer hydros do shine, especially if we factor in things like smoke screens you can be a little bit more aggressive on and push into ships with that, and of course cyclones, which is always a nasty one, or storm squalls, or whatever you call them in this game. It allows you to be a little bit more aggressive because then when ships are all rendered in at 8 kilometers, you only have about a 2 meter gap, 2 kilometer gap between when your ship is spotted via your hydroacoustic search working in your favor, and that's good against pesky little destroyers, right? But anyways, guys, what is the Gorizia and why do I like this ship so much? So basically, the Gorizia, in my eyes, is just a side-graded Zara that picks up a 6 kilometer hydro, that's basically from the Germans, with the cost of a little bit of DPM. That is really the big difference you're going to be seeing on the Gorizia. Other than that, everything is generally the same. There's definitely more changes when it came to the Fume compared to the Zara. But again, the Gorizia and the Zara are pretty much identical with their max speed, only only a knot faster. Their acceleration only a second slower. Rudder shift times identical. Turning circle radius identical. There really isn't many changes here in that regard. Hell, they even share the same HP pool of 37,100. It's just really going to come down to that, I guess, half a second slower reload time. Again, remember, all Sigma values are 2.0 exactly. One thing to keep in mind that I really do like on these particular ships is the shell velocity or flight time, especially at their maximum range of, let's say, like 16 kilometers, is only 9.5 seconds, which is relatively quick. So I don't feel like you have to be leading any extra than you normally would have to be when firing at ships at those longer ranges. Again, your AP penetration is awesome. Really, really nice. I mean, up to 16 kilometers, you have 176 millimeters of effective penetration. No improved ricochet angles here, and your standardized fuse times of 0.033 seconds. Again, damage clocking in at 4,800, and again, your initial speed coming out of the barrels is 900 meters a second. Again, we don't have to worry about HE because we actually don't have HE shells on this ship, so we go right over to the semi-armor piercing, which again, this is the super annoying projectile, as coined by various other YouTubers. 50-50 on the damage in regards of what you're clocking in at, and again tying that of the initial speed at 900 meters a second with effective penetration of 54 millimeters. Again, with that semi-armor piercing numbers, the ricochet angles are 70 to 80 degrees, which is quite nice. Again, moving into the secondaries, you have them, wouldn't rely on them, that's all we're going to talk about, but the Gorizia's secondary DPM actually is a little bit higher. And that just is coming down to, I guess, if you factor in the amount of secondaries you have on the ship, you actually pick up an additional 200 millimeter secondary guns on the ship, making your DPM actually push over 100,000. Again, you're not going to be speccing into these, so wouldn't really rely on your secondaries at all. They're there for the occasional fire because they do set, they do shoot HE, and they will set fires every now and then. But again, with a measly range of 5.6 kilometers, you have them, but you really don't. There are no torpedoes on the Gorizia. The Zara is the only one of the 3 Zara class ships that have torpedoes. The Gorizia and the Fume do not have them. So that kind of sucks in regards to that higher alpha strike to potentially turn the tide of combat, but also it kind of allows you to elude and forget about having them, which means you can always stay angled to your ship, and it's not necessarily going to cost you your ship if you get a little too greedy with turning out to launch your torpedoes, which again is quite nice as well. Anti-aircraft is pretty dog shit, I'll be honest with you guys. I would not rely on this. It is that Italian AA of 4.6 kilometer maximum range, so again, not much going to be going on here, so do not rely on it as well. Anyways, guys, now we actually hop into the gameplay of the Gorizia, and I will showcase my upgrades that I am taking on the ship, and I will also go ahead and showcase my commander skills that I am taking on the ship as well. Again, a couple things to take note. In that second slot, I am taking the improved hydroacoustic search to up my consumable action time, and in that fourth slot, I am taking prop mod to start and stop a little bit quicker so I can utilize my engine juking maneuvers a little bit easier, especially at range. This thing becomes a bit of a hassle. Basically all Italian ships become a bit of a hassle also because they're higher end maneuverability at longer ranges, which again, the Gorizia follows suit with that too. If we look at our commander build, very self-explanatory. The only thing here that I would really, that maybe you could try to pick up in regards of substitution of other skills is the outnumbered skill. You only have 8 guns, which again, 8-gun cruisers are a prime candidate for taking the outnumbered skill, plus having a smaller main caliber firing range, or sorry, a maximum main caliber firing range, yes, that's how you say it, 15.6 allows you to technically proc that skill a little easier, so you can take full advantage of decreasing your dispersion values and making your ship a little bit more accurate when shooting at targets. But again, that's going to come up to you to see what what skills you decide to compensate with and drop in order to pick that skill up. The captain skill tree that I showed is actually what I utilize on not only this ship but my Zara as well, and it really does work wonders for me, especially with that eye in the sky skill, which is going to allow you to have more charges of the spotter plane. Yes, it's not going to last as long, but your cooldown time is significantly reduced, so therefore you're going to be able to have it up a lot more frequently, which is nice for a ship that only has 15.6 kilometer main battery firing range. So you can choose based upon if you get up tier, depending on the game, depending on the map, if you want to have that up more to increase your range, via if you want to just stick with 15.6 because it's more than sufficient enough to land hits on enemy targets. Again, we do come in with the fuel exhaust smoke on this ship as well, which is always nice to see. This consumable is great because it basically conceals your ship while staying at maximum speed, which again, I'm sure the vast majority of you already know. It is not your standard smokescreen, it's not your short burst smokescreen. Hell, it's not even your crawling smokescreen. This is basically your exhaust smoke. You are flying at top speed, which is 33 knots plus the Sierra Mike flag, while staying concealed, which is quite nice because it allows you to reposition and retreat out of sticky situations. Again, the action time is 40 seconds. Your smoke dispersion time is 10 seconds. You have a radius of 510, which doesn't really matter because your whole ship is going to be concealed, and you're not really deploying this to smoke up your allies, let's be honest. And your cooldown time is 180 seconds. So yeah, guys, that is basically the Gorizia, and on the background footage, this is just some really good gameplay we ended up having in the Gorizia to showcase what this ship can do. But then again, I want to point out, everything you see me do here in this game is just as equivalent and able and capable of the Zara to do as well. The Fume's a little bit different because that has a burst fire mode, so again, that ship really takes punishing broadsides to the next level, especially because it has armor piercing with the same values as you see here with the Gorizia and Zara. That it also picks up HE2, so you can, be a kind of a pest at range too, and if battleships are nose into you, you still have a rebuttal to that. Because SAP is a little bit different. If you go nose into me when I am shooting semi-armor piercing, it really comes down to the caliber of my gun, so the shell going at you, see if I can overmatch you potentially, and where my SAP shell is going to land. More often than not, if I don't hit superstructure, I'm most likely going to be hitting your turrets or bow armor, and it really depends whether or not your ship or whether your shell is going to get a penetration or just a shatter. Because as you know, semi-armor piercing shells, they can only do one of the two. They can either shatter, they can penetrate. There is no over penetration on the semi-armor piercing shell. I don't even think, can they ricochet? I'm not 100% sure if they can even ricochet. I think they can just shatter, that's it. Which again is one of those things, it's the shell that's basically guaranteed damage next to high explosive. But then again, that's nothing new to a lot of you players. Now, one thing that does suck here is, if I was in the Zara again, the sub-surveillance radar consumable would have helped me out here. Instead, I have to try to outplay this submarine, which it's going to come down to my fuel exhaust smoke closing the distance between the sub, and then using my hydroacoustic search, which again travels out to 6 kilometers. So if he is at periscope depth, which I'm assuming he's going to try to be because he's going to try to spot me, I'm going to be able to go ahead and light him up so that my ASW can come in and potentially get the kill, and then I can follow up with my semi-armor piercing 203mm guns to kind of finish off the job. Which again, the semi-armor piercing does do wonders to enemy submarines, but again, this is not Cristoforo Colombo or Lepanto or Marco Polo semi-armor piercing. Those large caliber guns can absolutely devastatingly strike these subs. Cruisers, you're going to do really good damage. Again, if you're in a Venezia, that's a different story because you have 15 guns. But again, you only have 8 guns here. You're still going to be able to absolutely cripple the enemy submarine. But again, I wouldn't consider the Italian cruisers like glorified submarine hunters at all. But though, compared to the Yodo line and the Zhao line that both picked up the sub-surveillance radar, I would say that these are probably the best when it comes to those three. Of course, we have the Sybaris, which is literally, it's designed to do that with not only 2 airstrikes, but 3 airstrikes, and you have a longer range sub-surveillance radar. So yes, that thing's niche, but you do have the ability to do that here in the Venezia 2, which just becomes a little bit more applicable and doable, because you have the fuel exhaust smoke to kind of cloak you as you close the distance with the enemy submarine, which again, it's hard to gauge distance with subs when you're submerged underwater. Trust me, I would know, because I have dabbled in submarines. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I love submarines, but I have played them, and I do play them every now and then. So if you see me out there in the high seas playing a submarine, it's just probably because it's like my one sub game in like a week that I want to play, and I'll probably go play surfer ships after that, because that's where I have my most enjoyment. Anyways, I digress. So we're going to take out the enemy submarine here, which is quite nice. You can see how you can utilize your smoke screen to your advantage, and it theoretically closed the distance with the enemy submarine. Now, again, if you do not take Superintendent, which I highly recommend you do, because it gives you an extra charge on all your consumables, including that fuel exhaust smoke and hydro, of course, it's going to allow you to technically have one in the back, like one in the bag that you can use in situations like that, rather than if you only have 2, well, then it becomes more of a decision. Well, I don't know if I can, you know, afford to just use a smoke screen to hunt a submarine kind of thing. You know what I mean? So that's going to come down to you as the player to decide whether or not certain situations are worth utilizing your fuel exhaust smoke or whatever. Obviously, here's a good example of what I just talked about with semi-armor piercing going in on nose-end battleships. Obviously, we're getting shatters and ricochets, so you can get ricochets. My bad, I forgot that you can get it. I just usually get shatters, so. But yes, you can get ricochets as well, it looks like, with semi-armor piercing. And again, this is going to be hard because I have to basically try to pinpoint the superstructure on this battleship in order to get reliable, consistent damage, which is definitely a lot easier said than done. That is for damn sure. Again, if I had outnumbered, maybe I still probably couldn't even proc it here because I have a submarine and my other ally there, so I wouldn't be able to proc this skill, which kind of sucks. But then again, if I didn't have one of those 2 allies there, I could theoretically increase my likelihood of landing shells where I need to land them by, what, 8% more, I guess? Anyways. But yeah, you can see that the armor scheme on the ship, obviously I didn't showcase it in port. The main reason I didn't showcase this armor scheme in port is if you actually want to go check out my Fume review, I actually go into depth about the armor scheme as well, talking about her. So that's why I kind of left it out for this little review here as well. Again, it's very self-explanatory. It's very, very similar, if not pretty much damn identical. It is identical to the Zara. So if you want to go look at that thing and say, okay, this is what it's like, this is what I'm getting, boom, you're done. It's basically the same. I will tell you this though, the hulls on these ships do hold up relatively well against cruisers and obviously destroyers. But the second you get into battleships and you are not as careful with your angle, yes, you can absolutely score Citadel ribbons on any of these 3 ships because it does have an above water Citadel and it is exposed and it is easily penetratable as well, so you have to be careful with that. Now, going into my final thoughts about the Gorizia, now I want to talk more about this Azura Lane deal. Now, obviously, yes, you're probably sure you can tell I am a fan of Azura Lane, but also I have a brain, and I know that I'm not going to sit there and wail on this stupid event because it is just nothing more than a cash grab, okay? I do like Azura Lane. I have played it in the past on my mobile device, but again, I'm not going to go into, oh, I think you should get this. Like, if anyone sits there and tells you, I think you should pick up the Azura Lane, Massachusetts, because X, like, look, at the end of the day, it's your money. I'm not going to sit here. It's not my right to tell you what you can and can't do with your money. That should be no one's right. You do it, what you want to do. But I can assure you that if you really want vast majority of these ships that they're offering, just wait till Black Friday or Christmas and you have better chances of doing and getting it then. Unless you absolutely are a diehard Azura Lane fan, you love the cosmetics, you are just full out weaving, yeah, go ahead. But in my opinion, it's really not worth it. Now, here's the portion of this video. Now, this deal goes for about 6-7 days. I can actually get behind and support the purchase of the Gorizia for a, what is it, $10, I think it is. And again, if I'm wrong about that, I haven't really have a chance to check it out. If I am wrong about that, I'll go ahead and post it. Like, I'll link it up here to show you that. what the actual price is. I actually support the picking up this price because I think a tier 7 cruiser like the Gorizia is actually a fun time, and it is going to be picking up a heal, and that's what I want you all to realize too, is that this ship will be getting a heal come next update. So that's going to add to the survivability of the ship, and ultimately it's worth. I think you're going to have more fun with a lot of these mid-tier cruisers now because you have not necessarily a get out of jail free card. By no means is that what I'm saying. But now if you get hit every now and then, you take a big punishing salvo of 10k, which relatively would be like a 30 your HP. You can go back and heal a little bit of that up so you can be within the fight and stay in the fight a little bit longer, not relatively hiding and trying to use your concealment and shoot from stealth anymore. Like, you can still play the game, and I think that's going to be nice. It's going to add, it's going to change the game a little bit here, especially in mid-tier, and create more of a natural progression pattern for cruiser players and people that are grinding up the lines, which is always good to see. Obviously, this is a great ship. From the consumables that you have on this vessel, from the guns, from the semi-armor piercing, from the armor scheme, like all in all, this ship is pretty damn strong. And I know that this ship was introduced in the game way back in the day. I want to say during the Puerto Rico disaster with that dockyard. I think this was like a ship you could unlock with via mission chains or halfway up the docket or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is. If you remember, go ahead and comment down in the comments below about how this ship eventually was introduced into the game. But again, a lot of people tend to disregard it as like, oh, it's just a worse Zara. And people kept pointing out like, oh, it doesn't have torpedoes. Like, I understand that, and I think torpedoes are important, especially in a ship like this. You can send them out there, you can get lucky enough, which actually, surprising enough, you actually get more hits with these Italian torpedoes than you think, because they're sea mines and people maneuver and they maneuver right into them. But realistically speaking, I think it basically allows you to focus more on just your artillery and your guns and your positioning and your angle than worrying about, oh, let me swivel out, launch my torpedoes, and then we get nuked, right? Sometimes we see players, when they do that, it's like almost too much for them, and it's like it's moving a million miles an hour, and they end up, you know, going down. Obviously, this island came out of nowhere, didn't see it, so we're gonna go down here, but at the end of the day, like, I wanted to make sure I just picked up that kill on the colonel there, and then we're basically just welcoming death from above, and there it is. But again, I wanted to make this video because I wanted to inform the player base about the Gorizia and what this ship can do, and I actually think as a cruiser main, this is actually really good pickup, especially with the heal coming on this ship in the very next update. And that's not only going to come to this ship, but all tier 6, 7, and some 8, obviously, cruisers as well. So I'll leave you on the post-battle screen here, guys. Hopefully you got something out of this video, and it can come up to you guys. You guys can decide whether or not you want to pick up the Gorizia in the armory for the massive discounted price. Anyways, guys, thank you for tuning in. Love you all. Have a good rest of your day, guys. And like always, peace out, captains.